Hello, friends, and welcome to Rise Up in Real Estate, where we are on a quest. We are looking for the extra in the ordinary. And I'm Tad Fulford, and I will be your host on this journey where we will take an honest look at what makes ordinary people extraordinary. Exactly how can we be extra in our personal and our professional lives? In this season of the Rise Up in Real Estate adventure, there will be a monthly rhythm, meaning each month we will have 4 unique episodes. In one episode, we'll tackle a pressing current real estate industry thought. In another, we will chat with a local difference maker in the real estate space. For our 3rd episode, we will host a respected national thought leader. And finally, we will have a 4th bonus and surprise episode. And in each episode, we will be digging into not only what those people think, but who those people are. Along the way, it's my hope that you'll laugh some, you'll be challenged some, you will get inspired some, and if we are lucky, maybe even figure out a way or two you can rise up in your own life and be the best human that you can be. So the challenge is, let's all rise up. Welcome back, Rise Up Nation. We're excited to have you here listening to this episode today. We're in the middle of season 3, which is exciting, season 3 of this podcast. And I genuinely have, I know you guys hate it when I say this, but I have one of my best friends. She doesn't know that yet, but I just told her, best friends in another state, doing this kind of the same thing I'm doing every day on our podcast today. She's such a positive, bright light. I can't wait to introduce you to my friend here. This is my friend, Shayla Deam. Shayla, thanks for being here today.
Well, hello, new best friend. Thanks for having me. Everybody always wants to know they have a secret best friend, right?
Yeah, that's the only reason I do this show, actually, because I kind of don't have that many friends. So when I do this, I can add one more to it. But no, I'm excited for you to be here. Tell us a little bit, tell me where you are today, the name of your office, although this is not a brand commercial or anything, but tell me about yourself a little bit, where you are now today.
Yeah, great question. So I am currently located in Lee Summit, Missouri. I am the broker, talent finder, recruiter, whatever you want to call it, here in Lee Summit, Missouri. I've been in this office specifically for about 7 years. So been with Remax for 10. I previously owned my own Remax franchise in Junction City, Kansas, and then ventured to Lee Summit, Missouri. So
interesting. So I have to ask the question. I didn't think of this before. Are you a Kansas City Chief fan? Are you a football fan at all?
Well, I consider myself a fan of both teams simply because I walk away a winner no matter what. I just really enjoy the sport, watching strategy, watching effort, watching coaches. But it is kind of hard with the Chiefs and the Royals being in your backyard, not at least sporting the gear, being a fan of some sort. So, yeah.
I've been watching, someone recommended that I watch the Netflix show called Quarterback. Have you seen,
Yep.
You laugh, have you seen that?
I sure have. I would definitely say it's interesting to see who is it, Patrick Mahomes, and I can't remember the other quarterback, but it's amazing to see where they are in their lives as far as like ages and being grown up a little bit. Patrick definitely has a little bit of growing up to do. You probably shouldn't put that on the podcast. I don't know how many people will stop listening because of that, but it's just incredible to see, who he is off of the field and listen, to some of his dialogue and some of his, family's dialogue too. But yes, to answer your question, I have seen it. So
yeah, I think it has done a good job putting, he's basically the mayor of that city. Like he's worshiped there, and so be it. They've had a great run, and I'm excited. I've been interested at you and I are a lot alike. Like I look below the surface on everything. Oh. So I've been way below the surface on that show, but I've enjoyed it. So tell me, I don't know all of this about you, so I want to ask you some questions. Where were you born?
Do you want me to raise my right hand and swear
no,
to the
not yet. That's later. That's not yet.
So I was born in a very small town in Kansas called Great Bend, Kansas, just maybe about an hour east of Dodge City, Kansas. I grew up in Southwest Kansas, so very small town, Southwest Kansas girl. You would go miles and miles before seeing another town. Tumbleweeds were pretty popular. I think I had like 19 people in my graduating class.
Oh,
So
wow.
when you hear people say they did it all in school, I mean, that's for sure me. I cheered for the football game, went in and changed clothes, maybe went out and cheered for basketball game. I played basketball. So you were definitely all things, and you needed to do that in a small town. So
That's cool. Do you have brothers and sisters? I don't know that about you
I,
either.
I am a middle child. Does that shock you?
There you have it. There you have it, folks. You'll know this by the end of the episode. So you have a brother and sister, or do you have two sisters? What do you have?
So there are five of us total. So I have two older brothers, an older sister, and a younger brother. And it's always funny. I always tell people like I'm the runt of the family, and I'm literally the runt. My baby brother is 6'7". The women in my family are 5'10". My two older brothers are probably 6'3", 6'4", and here I am in 5'6". So I always look at mom. I'm like, "Are you sure I belong?"
So
She's like, "Yes, stop asking me."
mom and dad were tall, or no, both tall?
I
Your
mean,
mom and
my
dad?
mom was my mom was 5'10". My dad was probably about the same height too. And I mean, my son, he's 6'4", 6'5", and my daughter's even taller than me. So, I may be small, but I'm mighty. How's that?
Oh, I'm not. Well, I understand that because I'm married to one of those, and I totally get that. You mentioned a son and a daughter. How old? What are they doing? Where are they in their life?
Yeah, so I'm in a great moment in my life because both of my children are adults. So Braden is 20. He is going into his junior year of college, and my daughter Keely is 25, and she just graduated from UMKC with a degree in nursing and just accepted a job at Children's Mercy Hospital in their pediatric oncology unit. So my kids are thriving. Yeah, life is
Wow.
good.
Is that the hospital that near you that your CMN funds go to, or
Yes,
no? Is
yes,
it really?
exactly. It is. And
Wow.
believe it or not, so there is a local organization that they do a fundraiser called the Big Give, and it brings in a lot of famous people. They have a baseball game, and it actually supports that same unit that my daughter is going to work on at Children's Mercy. So
Wow. And what gave her that kind of interest? What made her want to go that route? Because that's not for the faint of heart. I mean, listen, we go
no.
visit the children's hospital here every month, and I walk through those. I do it on purpose because it's like a mind reset for me, because I have six healthy, super healthy children. But what would draw your daughter to want to work in that environment? Special.
I asked her the same question because for me, I consider myself an empath. Let's just be honest. Like I feel at a much deeper level, and we look at life through our lenses, right? And I'm like, how could you do this? Like that would be a constant state of grief. And she gave me the most adult answer that she could ever give. Tad, she says, "Mom, somebody has to do it, and why not me?" She feels that she's called to make a difference, and I tell you what, every single day she goes to work, I'm always telling her, "Hey, make a difference today." And she's like, "You got it." So she's excited. She, doesn't obviously know what she's in for. But when we look back at her journey, even to get to this point, it wasn't perfect. It was a very windy road filled with a lot of tears and a lot of anxiety. And I finally just told her, I said, "Man, Keely, look back at where you are right now and the opportunity that you have. Do you not think for a minute as how things were aligned, the way that they were aligned for you to be prepared to go in and do a job like this? It's going to be hard. And had your road been easy up to this point, you may not be, internally prepared to handle something like this." So she's definitely up for the task for sure. And I'm super proud of her, and also anxious a little bit because you don't want to be in front of, some of those things. But like she said, somebody has to do it. So
Yeah, I've met a lot of those people in those hospitals because I visit there, and I'm always amazed at, I've heard people say the families that go through those things say they're angels. Those people are. And we have two agents right now that are going through terrible situations. And, the people that support them are literally next level. And that answer that she gave you is next level, even though she's a young woman. So good for her. And, I wish we had time to kind of chart. Well, we may have just learned the lesson on this podcast that we're going to learn. Like you said, the windy road, in my opinion, is always preparing us for something. I don't think we're here on the planet by accident. I think we all have a job to do. And if we don't do it, nobody else can. Right. Exactly. And so if your daughter wouldn't have stepped in that gap, like she said, nobody might have. So good for her. That's exciting. Has your son got the same kind of, like, is he going to save the world too? What's he up to? Is he more like me?
It's so funny that you say that, because I remember him at 3 years old. Like, he felt like he was Superman, right? Like, oh, I can do it. If anybody can do it, I can do it. I could stop that car, Mom. Like, I can stand in the road and stop the car. I'm like, yeah, there's some things that we want to, back off of a little bit. But he's definitely my business minded entrepreneur for sure. Like, he's more focused on, my time is valuable. How can I maximize my income with my time? And, both of my kids and your kids are probably the same. They're like, Mom, we don't need you to coach us. Because just by natural, by default, that's what I do. I want to inspire and empower people to think differently and look at things differently. But it's so beautiful to see your kids just mold over the years and see how they've taken on, truly proven to you that they're listening. Right. And so to see him, he thinks he wants to do real estate. And of course, for me, I don't want him to do that by default. Right. Like, oh, this is all I know. But I have learned just to kind of sit back and not be a parent to them once they turn 18, and be more of an advisor. Let them come to me with problems and be able to sit and advise them versus, trying to create this perfect path for them. Because I've learned with Keely, and I've also learned for myself, right? My path was not perfect, but man, if I look where I am now and have the mindset that I have, like, I can't go back and want to change that. So I have to embrace that for my kids too, although it's hard, right? We want our kids to have a perfect life and a perfect path, and not face, the hardships that we face. But who am I if I wanted to dismiss that? I'd be dismissing my own journey, and that's simply not fair. So
yeah, that's huge. And I think one of the hardest things as a parent for me is allowing, it's the great conundrum. Like, you want to give them a perfect environment, and the more perfect environment you give them, the more imperfect it is, because they don't have,
that's true.
We watched, I don't know how we even got on this last night. My younger kids were sitting in the bed with us, and the golf went off, and 60 Minutes came on right away. And it was about a photographer who took pictures for Time Magazine for 30 years. And of course, it was all tragedies. And my daughters at 6 and 7 years old were watching this for a minute. And I told Mandy, should we change it? And we decided to leave it on, because they were looking at third world situations where war-torn, devastation from storms in Haiti, families without the food and water and the right medical attention. And my daughters were like, never seen this before. Right. So I didn't want them to see it, and I don't want them to feel it, but failure is a great lesson teacher, isn't it? And I want to talk a minute about your path, like, because you're the reason I wanted you on the show, and I wanted to talk to you. And you've had you've been in real estate 10 years, you said, right?
17. I've been with Remax for 10. Mm-hmm.
So you're so young. You didn't do anything before that, right? That was right out of college.
Right out of the womb, I went into real estate.
Did you do anything before real estate?
I did. I was actually an administrative assistant for a district judge for about 8 years. So those jury trial subpoenas that you receive, I was typically on the other end of that. I was doing first appearances for people who found them, who found themselves in, criminal trouble over the weekend. Yeah. And doing that for 8 years, I realized I knew a lot of people, but I knew a lot of the wrong people. So I was like, I'm ready for something different. I want, not to come into work and it be about trials and it be about, bad things. I wanted to be able to switch gears and step into something different, and just had a real estate opportunity come up. And I had no clue. I'm like, I don't even know what that entails, but let me check into it. And before I knew it, I had my real estate license and was working for a boutique brokerage. So
you sold real estate for a time, and you owned a Remax office. You said you owned a franchise yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was with that boutique brokerage, and my timelines may be off a little bit by a year or 6 months, but right. I worked for them for about 6 or 7 years, and we kept showing up to meetings after meetings. And you know me well enough to know that I want to take action on things. I don't want to just sit and talk about something for an hour. I want to be able to take action on something. And if I'm going to a meeting and coming out and not taking action, it's like death to me, because who I was yesterday isn't who I am today, nor who I want to be tomorrow. So we wanted to be able to take action. And I got a phone call. I was actually sitting at my desk. I was the agent on call, and I got a phone call from Wayne Frederick. I don't know if you recognize that name.
Yep.
So he was our franchise sales in this region. So he calls me and he's like, hey, just calling, saw your stats or whatever, and just was curious if you've ever been interested in owning your own brokerage. Well, keep in mind, I go from the court system into real estate, not knowing much about it, to now getting a phone call from someone that says, hey, are you interested in owning a brokerage? Well, I've learned from a very young age, never say no unless you know what it is you're saying no to. So I agreed to meet with him, and then started to explore, the opportunity of owning a brokerage. I want to say it was probably 7-8 months of going through that transition that I found myself being a franchise owner at the, I want to say I was maybe 28, 29, knew nothing about what I was doing. I just knew I needed to do more and wanted to do more.
So you just said yes.
You make it sound so easy. I'm sure there was all sorts of things going on in my mind. And I knew this was the next direction. I took a look around our industry to see it was just the same old operations, the old fashioned brokerages, the same models. And I wanted to be a difference maker, and I wanted to be really, at the end of the day, wanted to be in that leadership position. So I was almost, thrusted into it. I guess I did sign my name to it, but nonetheless, here I am. So 10 years with the brand. So,
and now you describe your job as what in the brokerage now?
Well, I don't even consider it a job. I'm really living out this mission that I have for my life to improve and impact others. And so on the daily basis, whether that's agents in my office, whether that's people unhappy with their jobs, whether that's agents in other offices. So I like to label it as more of a talent finder, because they think most people, graduate school and the next question is, okay, who are you going to go work for? And nobody looks at real estate as a true business ownership potential. So I really just want to get people to look at real estate differently and know that real estate can be done different. And I truly believe that even to this day in our market of what's going on around us, how a lot of the brokerages are still running, traditionally and things like that. I'm like, no, there's a different way to do this. And it's putting the agent in the mindset of a true business owner, that they are the president and CEO and not just coming in and doing a job and, reacting to every demand as a real estate agent typically does. So.
And most individuals receptive to that mindset, or do they default to, I just rather sell real estate? I don't want to think about it that way. I don't want to think about me being a CEO of it.
Well, and I think a lot of times they default to that, right, Tad, because they don't know any other way. That's all they've ever known real estate to be talked about is it's just a job. You're going and you're performing a service for someone. And I typically will respond with a different question of, tell me, have you ever had somebody share with you and shift your thinking on how this can be a business? Has anybody shared that with you? And most of the time they're like, well, no. And then we quickly get them to open up a little bit and just understand that there's a different way to do this. And I want to look at it as something that's long-term sustainable. Earlier, we talked about foundations, having the proper foundations, having a root system into these things is long-term sustainable, that can outlast any market, that can outlast anything. So just, getting people to look at the industry different as a whole. And you're right, not everybody is receptive to it. Sometimes they just want to go and react. And I don't know why, because to me, that would be just all over the place and really having no grasp of where I'm headed and what I'm doing. So.
Yeah. Did you ever read the book called The E-Myth? Did you read that?
So I will tell you, David Scott recommended that book, and anything that has a lot of numbers and graphs and charts, I'm a high I and a D.
Okay.
I think when I looked at that, I was like, ugh, I'm going to go back and try to give it another shot, but it was a hard read for me. How about you?
It's the weirdest I think it's the worst cover. Like if to me, the cover makes me read something. Like I'd probably read, we were in the airport the other day and I was looking at I don't ever read a book. I always listen to it because I'm in my car so much.
Me
But
too.
when I look at the E-Myth, the cover of the book, I'm like, it looks like a chart, like a bunch of numbers.
Yes, that's why. That's probably why.
you should get it on Audible and listen to it because it talks about the concept of, not everyone's an entrepreneur. People like they give an example, a story. It's really a story. The book it's very good once you get into it. But they talk about this person that owns a bakery, I think it is, but she's an operator, not an entrepreneur. But she wanted to own a bakery because she loved running the bakery, but she didn't have any entrepreneurial ideas. Like she wasn't about profit or growth or the sustainable profits, like you talk about the future. She was an operator. She was very good at baking pies. Like her pies were well known around the whole city, but she wasn't a growth minded entrepreneur. And I think a lot of it, you talk to a lot of agents, I think they're the same way. They're very good at selling real estate, but they don't look at it as this could be a business that I could leverage. Like when you say that word to them, they're like,
Yeah.
Oh, I'll hire an assistant. No, that's not. It's way more than that. So I love that you're having and you're having those conversations now, right? You're still in the rooms talking to people that are not in the business or at other companies, and you're having those conversations.
Absolutely. With my agents that are in, other offices and even new people coming in, because to me, that's the best way to hit the ground running is to start with them and explain it to them different. And that's what gets me excited is because I never had anybody explain it to me that way 17 years ago. 17 years ago, it was, we're hiring you to respond. And that was about the time that the .com, the leads and everything started. So we were just reacting to everything that was coming to us, very briefly educated, just mainly on how to do it. And I fell on my face so many times. And seeing the timeline that it took me to get there, I want so badly for new agents or agents newer into the industries to go, you don't have to take the 8 years that it took me to really build something sustainable. You can do it now. And here's a proven and turnkey method. Why would you say no to that versus just entering in and being typical and being another statistic? So it's something I'm so passionate about. And you're right. Not everybody is willing to listen. But I think that there's some statements or some questions that we can ask that get them to think differently, even if it's just for a brief moment in their business. And eventually they're going to get to the point where they want to know more and want to learn more. So
I hope our listeners will reach out to you when we're done, like at some point, whether it's via email, text, call you, because Shayla has got just an uncanny ability to kind of see through all of the noise and the fog of whatever's going on in the world. You're so, I don't know how to say it, but very practical. Like, here's the things you need to do. And I love the way you just described it. You can take 8 years of experience and put it into a package that's going to save you so much time and money and frustration and all of that. So I hope you guys will reach out to her afterwards. If you live or own property along the coast of South Carolina, you probably need insurance. We Insure Advocates is a locally owned independent agency with industry-leading service support. Our team of customer-centric agents can explain your coverage options and help you craft an insurance program that fits your needs and budget. Data-driven for better value, people-led for better service. That's the difference of we. For all of your property insurance needs, please find us at weinsureadvocates.com or call us at 843-491-6990. Before I enter in my last couple of questions, because can you believe it's been 20 minutes? You can't believe that.
I knew when you said 30 minutes, I was like, Tad, we should block out a half a day for this. But
we'll do
invite me back.
We will do this again for sure. Tell me, if you had to tell me, and I'll surprise you with this question because I didn't prepare you for this. What's the number one quality that someone has to have, in your opinion, to be successful in our business, in the real estate space? If you had to boil it down to one thing.
I would say learning based.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because I think that enhances your life personally and professionally. Because if you're not learning something in some fashion, you're complacent. And at the end of the day, that's death, right? Like we have, and I don't want to say unlimited amount of time. It feels like that, right? But you have only so much time on this earth. Why not maximize what it is that you know? Because I feel that being learning based is something that nobody can take away from you, right? Like I
Right.
can't take away all of the knowledge that you've gained from all of your hours that you've spent with David Scott, or even on this podcast listening to other people. Nobody can take that away from you. No market can take that away from you. No hardship can take that away from you. No amount of money can take that away from you. And it does, it helps you elevate your way of thinking, your way of speaking, and most importantly, your way that you treat others and help educate them as well. And honestly, it's the gift that keeps on giving, in my opinion, because we're
Yeah.
both blessed with David Scott. Everything that he teaches us is meant for us to go on and share with other people. So whether it be
Right.
other brokers and broker owners in our market, whether it be other agents, and then hopefully what we've shared with them impacts them in some way, even if it's just a small area of their business, that they can then go on and share that with someone else. So really, I would say being learning based for sure.
Yeah. And how are you learning based and not, how can someone be learning based and not get distracted by the shiny objects? Like,
Very
is there
intentional,
a filter?
and I wouldn't say you have to make a conscious effort, but really it's about being very intentional and proactive about the vision that you have for your life. And I could go back and talk about this all day long because we can react to all the bright and shiny noises. I could react to it as well. But if I'm not in aligned with my vision and my core values and I know where I want to go, everything that I'm listening to, everything that I'm reading, and everything I'm engaged in aligns with where it is that I'm headed. I don't have time for anything else of, hey, do you have a minute? We want to pick your brain for something else new. I'm sure it sounds great, but not in this present moment. It's not in alignment with where it is I want to go. And so being learning based allows you not only to achieve at a different level, but it really keeps you on course and really committed and focused to where you're headed. I get so many people that'll ask me questions about the market or, oh, did you see what so-and-so is doing? And my response is, I don't have time. I don't have time to focus on what everybody else is doing. It doesn't mean that I'm not aware, but I don't really let it take up real estate in my mind. I go back to what my core values are, what my mission is, and what my vision is for my life. And it's not in alignment with that. Like I'm not listening to it and I'm not doing it. So a lot of that has to do with impacting others, which is why I'm here with you today, is because this is an opportunity for us to connect. And then, like you said earlier, in hopes that there's somebody that's listening that hears one little small thing that, transforms their way of thinking and transforms their life or their business.
Yeah, that's good. I don't know if you know the name Darren Hardy, but I'm like a junkie for stuff, but I'm like you, I can hear things, places it in my filter, and I know right away whether it's good or bad or it takes me where I want to go. But he said something the other day that I thought was interesting based on learning based. He said, when I was 20, I thought I knew everything. And now that I'm 45, I realize how little I know. And isn't that profound? I mean, isn't that true as we get older? I mean, now you're in your 30s and you can see that you don't know, as there's so much that you don't know. And we're in the information age. Like there's so many things at our disposal. Like we're getting so much knowledge from everywhere else. But I love how you bring it back to your confidence in what your purpose is. And I think what I've learned is it's hard sometimes because we push people into jobs in our country. And you said it, I think it was before we got on the podcast, we push people into jobs and then they live their life according to what their job earns them, as opposed to having the courage to say, no, I want to live like this. What will afford me that? And that's
Absolutely.
what an entrepreneur does. Tell me I already know the answer to this, but I'm going to let you tell me. What?
Good. I'm going to answer differently than.
No, you're not. You're just going to be right off target. What is your superpower, Shayla? Like if there was, and I know people don't love to talk about themselves because it's awkward, but what is it that, like you talked about your daughter, and she's got this purpose now that she's doing because nobody else will or might. What is your superpower? What are you here for? And what's good about you? Tell us.
I would say just transformative thinking. There's so many different ways that we can look at situations, at fear, at troubles, at life. And I even have a statement that I say in this office is, how could we think about that differently? Or how could we say that differently? So much that I hear other agents using the same term, because it doesn't mean that I don't have bad days. It doesn't mean that you don't have bad days. I just make a conscious choice to look at it as part of my journey, that it's an opportunity to help me level up and elevate and overcome something and face something and get to the next level of life, because that's us being learning based, right? Is looking at something that we're faced with and going, okay, how can I look at this differently? What can I learn from this that moves me to the next level versus, just sitting in those thoughts and that negativity. So really, I would say transformative thinking. Is that what you were going to guess?
Yeah, sometimes I feel like I'm looking in the mirror when I talk to you. I mean that as a compliment. It might not come across as a compliment, but yeah, I knew that was what you were going to say, because you are. This is weird. I'm going to try to find these notes. I just did this right before I talked to you, and you guys can't see this because it's a podcast. But I was listening to something, and there were 3 things this person said in order to ripen your mind every day. One was early morning. Do something in the early morning that will focus your day. Go for a 30-minute walk, which is basic exercise, obviously. But the last one was always look on the bright side. And he said, which is exactly what you just said. He said, if you can't look on the bright side, figure out a way that you can look on the bright side. Like, what perspective can you have? Maybe you have a role in, maybe you can see the bright side very easy. Or maybe you have a role in getting to the bright side. Or maybe you can look at it from a different perspective and see someone else's bright side. But always having that, there is another side, right? And
absolutely.
I love that. So transformative thinking, that's a big one. I like that.
Well, and think about when you live on the bright side, like, it's not about matter of you being in control, but you have the choice to think that way and to live that way. We could by default listen to everything that's going on around us. And I don't come up with this story. Let me share this story. So I would be about a year and a half ago, I was in an automobile accident. I had somebody hit me from behind going about 40 miles an hour, and brand new car. My car was 4 months old, and she hit me, and I wasn't angry about it. I had every reason to be. And I could tell that myself was like, you should be mad about this, but you're not, right? I'm alive. I'm still speaking. I'm talking, and this can be fixed. A few years ago, I probably wouldn't have thought that. I would have been, mad and said a few choice words, but we can operate by default in what the world's giving us. And there's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of, negative undertones and all of these things. And we have a choice every single day when we wake up. That's exactly what I do. Is I go to a devotion, or I read something, I listen to something to get me on the right track for the day. Because when we lead people and we empower people, we want to be of the right mind. And I consider just being on your podcast and having somebody's ears is a very precious moment for us, because we want to be able to change how they think and make an impact on them, and not just be, we don't want to fall on deaf ears, nor do we want to give information that just isn't going to make the world operate a little bit differently. So
yeah, I love that. And I'm the same way. Like, I don't get riled up. Well, sometimes I do, but not like that. I would have handled that car wreck the same way, because, and some of my friends that challenge my thinking say that's weakness, but I think it's the ultimate strength to be able to rise. The name of the podcast is Rise Up, but rise above the mediocrity, the fray that's going on in the world every day. You stand out when you act that way. Like, when you hop out of your car and you go back there and you say, "Are you okay?" Well, I mean, she just hit you going 40 miles an hour. You could have been concerned only about yourself and your stuff, and going back there and giving her a few. Oh, hey, are you okay? I love that.
Which is the typical, right? We know if we were to create that same scenario, the person on the other end is going to expect somebody to be angry with them. The person that's trying to get through a traffic signal is going to expect the other person to honk and have a few choice words. Somebody that's in a hurry, you're going to expect them. I'm like, why not do the unexpected?
Yeah.
Because when you do that, what does the other person do? They go, oh, there's something different. That makes an impact, not just being typical, like, the world is being, right? When we respond differently and behave differently, that causes people to pause, think about themselves, think about what they do or how they would handle it and go, wow, that's a much bigger person to be able to do something like that. Just think if we all did that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't want you to think I'm distracted. I'm taking notes. That's why I keep looking down at my paper. I'm writing all these amazing things that you're saying down.
I'm boring you. Sorry.
No, yeah, I'm playing. I'm doing crossword puzzles. Tell me a 4-letter word for no. We had a server at a restaurant she came over and it was literally the worst server. We'd been to this restaurant before and she's literally the worst server that we could have had. And I would have chosen anybody else at the restaurant. We know it very well. But when she came to the table and then she went away, I told Mandy, I said, we're going to change her today. We're going to make her different today. And so when she came to the table, I was asking her tons of questions and I kind of broke her down a little bit. And what you said a minute ago, although you didn't want to say it, was it puts you in a position of control because it forces them to ask themselves, how would I have acted? How would I be? And then it changes their mind. So you're ultimately in control. And why not be that way? I mean, that to me, I'm not always in that mindset, but to me, that's the fun way to be. If you let it get under your skin, I mean, you wouldn't look how young you look. You wouldn't look like that if you yelled at everybody that did something wrong. So let me ask you this question. What is a good book? You just said you couldn't read the E-Myth, but what's a good book you can recommend to our audience if you have one?
I pick my book covers like I pick bottles of wine. I'm a label reader. You should probably cut that out. But
nope.
Really it's anything with John Maxwell.
Okay.
And here's why. His core values align a lot with mine. And I think that I don't want to say I know that that's so important. A lot of who we follow, who we choose to follow, who we choose to read, a lot of times we're reading it because we want to know more, right? But what if we truly asked ourselves, like, what's our mission? What's our vision? What are our core values? And who I'm listening to, do they align with that? And John Maxwell, I mean, anything that he writes is just absolutely incredible. So much that I'm reading it again. So the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, I actually introduced that to our team of our leadership staff here at Remax Heritage. And so we're reading that book as a team and coming together biweekly and talking about things that have changed our thinking. Because if you think about everything that I talked about that's important to me, it's in that book, it talks about developing leaders as well, instead of just having followers. That's more about ego than if I can empower these people to think differently. I mean, they're the ones that are going out and engaging with the agents as well. And so to me, it's just a farther reach for me to be able to take something that I've read as a leader and help develop this leadership team into even better leaders. So John Maxwell, any of his books, he has a great leadership podcast. I don't know if you listen to it. It's phenomenal as well.
That's awesome. So that is a great one. And you're I've taken more notes with you than anyone else, I think, in all of the times I've done this podcast, but I love developing leaders versus gaining followers. That's a huge that's a great title for a video or a book or if you're going to get a chance, and I hope you will get a chance to teach at R4, because everybody's about followers. I told you earlier. Yeah.
I want us too. We've always talked about, they need you and I on this.
I mean, someday they will ask. Someday they will ask. But I even said it before we got on here that I've had X number of people looking at my Rise Up Facebook page or whatever, but developing leaders is what a leader does. Gaining followers, anybody can do. So I love that.
And go back to what you were saying earlier about, educating yourself and how even us as leaders, we have to constantly elevate our game, which means we need to be learning, right? We need to keep the bar here, because when you go, like, it's one thing to know information, but when I'm also behaving in a way that's in alignment with it, and then take it a step further, right? Cycle of mastery. Like, I am teaching what I know. And when I can teach that to someone, again, it's helping develop and grow other leaders. Now they are going out and impacting their people. And that's all I want for my life, is to know that at the end of my life, that people can look at me and say, you know what, I think differently, I act differently, and I am different because of the things that she has challenged me to do in my own life, that's all I want, because that's something that's going to outlast my life, outlast your life, is, and your kids. Like, what a
Yeah.
great start to do that with them. And I only hope and pray that my children, do some of those things in their life as well.
I'm sure they will. I mean, look at her. She's already working in a hospital where I can barely go without a box of tissues. So good for her. So tell me the one thing, what the name of the podcast, Rise Up in Real Estate, but it's all about rising up, like we talked about a moment ago. Is there something in your daily routine that helps you kind of rise up above the crowd?
I would say it's starting the day focusing on myself, whether it be through exercise, whether it be through reading a daily devotion. And I actually just had this conversation with an agent earlier because I could tell that there was something heavy, on her heart and mind. And I shared with her, I said, look, here's the deal. It doesn't mean that I don't wake up fearful of something or feeling inadequate or whatever it may be. It's just, I have learned to engage in things that have turned that volume down, and I've learned to coexist. I've learned to read certain things that get my mind right, but doing that turns that volume down of, feeling inadequate and feeling like the struggles are too heavy. It's just really going to devotions, going to a podcast. And I know it seems very reactionary, but usually I wake up and go, okay, what do I need to hear today? Do I need to hear Jesus? Do I need to hear John Maxwell? Do I need to hear, I choose, but what I'm choosing is to help me keep my thinking right. So.
And you do that first thing? Are you an early riser?
Yes, I am, between 5:30 and 6:30. It just depends. I say just depends because my weekends, I give myself grace. I'm not that up at 5 every day. But I have found that the world is not noisy then. And I know that I'm of the minority waking up that early. Yeah. Therefore, I'm not facing the demands of, if you're a parent of young kids, you're not facing the demands of them, and rightfully so. But I'm truly able to focus on myself. And I think that kind of has a negative tone to it when they're like, don't think of yourself because that's selfish. I'm like, no, it's, if I can get my mind right and my body right, and I can go and serve, because what we do, Tad, is extremely hard. Like, we're serving other people all day. We have to serve ourselves, because that's the gift that we're then going to give, is that state of mind that we're in. So if I'm having a really crappy morning and I don't get out of it, guess what? Everybody that's around me is going to hear that, and they're going to have a crappy day too. Yeah. So I would much rather start it off right and be able to share that gift of positive thinking and just getting off on the right foot. So, or the left foot, whichever one you want to have.
Yeah, depending on which footed you are. Well, you have been as fun as I thought it would be. We will definitely revisit another episode. We're going to talk deeper on this whole leadership piece or something. But thank you very much for taking your time today, and we will we'll do some more. There's a lot more inside of you that I want to share with our listeners. So thank you for being open to being here. Tell us Tell us the best way to contact you. I'll put it in the show notes also, but how can these people spell your name and give me your contact information?
I feel like we're asking that real estate question, like, what's your preferred method of communication?
Yeah.
So, honestly, anybody, they can follow me on social media. They can DM me. They can email me at Shayla Deam at remax.net. They can simply text me and call me as well. I'll let you put my phone number out there, because my phone number has been blasted all over the internet for 17 years, so I'm not afraid to give it out.
Yeah, perfect.
They're gonna find you, my friend. They're gonna find you.
That's right. Well, Shayla, thank you very much. Go impact somebody's life this afternoon, and I appreciate your time.
You have a meaningful day. Thank you.
Well, hey, that's a wrap, folks. Thank you so much for listening to Rise Up in Real Estate. If you liked hanging out with us today, please find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Rise Up in Real Estate. Also, follow us right now on your favorite podcast host to hear more episodes. We really appreciate you spending some of your time with us. And until next time, let's do each other a favor and all help each other rise up.